first Kong update video. Basically, in this video, we're gonna see if the new villain Scar King is a whole entire new species. The video is by GODZILLA, and I've seen some people talk about how they kind of know what Scar King is now.
Today, we'll try to do our best to uncover some potential attributes of this new monster and see if we can figure this guy out before the release of GxK.
Was that an actual, like, image of him?
There have already been some leaks circling around this new ape titan that may not be officially true.
I want to see
Some of which may have mentioned this ape by its name.
We got a name
too? This is your last warning before we make mention of a couple
we're telling you now.
leaks.
But
for this episode, we will be referring to this new kaiju as Scar King.
I'm totally gonna watch.
And also, since we don't really have the official name of the species that he belongs to, we'll be referring to them as the Red Apes.
See, we kind of knew that already.
We knew that. In the title reveal trailer, many people instantly took note of its glowing eyes, reddish-brown appearance, and lanky build.
He looked like a savage, but he looked old to me. You know what I'm saying?
To the Beast Titan from Attack on Titan. The big monkey titan that
has actually a good comparison.
With all sorts of opponents, ranging from technologically deprived islanders to people
who
maybe
he can do some stuff
other explosive
kind of like him
down to a science.
I don't know. It's interesting.
5 attributes
I'm excited.
that may give this guy a critical edge when facing off bulky opponents like Kong and Godzilla, using what may be the real-life creature that inspired its design and characteristics.
I'm assuming the orangutan. Yep, there we go.
Note that a direct comparison between orangutan and Scar King is not going to be a perfect one-to-one. Remember, all titans are not normal animals and follow their own rule sets. Instead, this perspective discussed in this episode will use orangutans and gorillas as plausible benchmarks to use as reference. But why are we specifically using an orangutan to compare with Scar King? Well, there are many clues. The presence of lanky appendages, red coloration of fur, and the fact that orangutans, as far as cognitive abilities go, can be far more complex than that of gorillas, which are physically more stronger than orangutans, but aren't necessarily as crafty. Let's delve deeper into the differences of these two kaijus by assigning them the apes that were potentially used as chief real-world references.
Godzilla versus orangutan.
African gorillas for the Kong and orangutans for Scar King.
I'd say gorilla, because if he gets a hold of him, it's game over. You know what I'm saying?
Base differences. Despite being the great ape that is most distantly related to humans, one of the orangutan's most notable attributes is their cognitive ability. In fact, the word orangutan comes from the Malayalam words orang-hutan, which together mean forest person, for obvious
I did not
reasons.
know that, actually.
Male orangutans,
it makes sense.
Unlike male gorillas, tend to be solitary creatures and are shown to demonstrate aggression towards other males to set up a territory.
Oh no!
They can't live in groups, and when they do, they show complex social dynamics, including
the babies are
empathy,
so adorable,
consoling, and even alliances and coalitions. A much more complex social system than a group of gorillas. These guys, as well as the Kong species, are actually very social creatures. It's extremely rare to see a single male gorilla by itself wandering about. If kept alone and isolated, gorillas tend to get sick, stressed, and even develop symptoms similar to depression.
Not Kong, though. Kong's a savage.
Yeah, our boy Kong has been alone for a while, and the worst place to be alone at such a young age was Skull Island. Scar King, however, would probably not have any issues with being alone. But does this actually mean that he's going to be alone in the next film? Maybe yes, and maybe no. This
what
is
if he's got a squad with him?
To be revisiting later in this
That's
episode.
what I want to know. Is there any other villains other than him?
Form alliances or entities such as the said coalition.
Can't just be one guy.
Keep this in mind as we move further in the episode.
Is that orangutan talking? What was that? What was that from?
This category will help us understand that orangutan intelligence is a little more complex than that of gorillas in regards to social interaction. There are not many examples of deception employed by gorillas in the wild.
Did you see that?
In captivity, there is a recorded instance where the male
gorilla would purposefully
hide from the mother of the child to play with the infant, despite her not wanting him to do so. Orangutans are a different story. There are many cases where orangutans employ deceptive tactics against other members of their own kind and other species. In one case, certain individuals were seen using foliage to blast their calls through them, modifying their voices and in the act sounding like bigger and more powerful apes. Things get crazier with orangutans in captivity. Ken Allen, a male orangutan at the San Diego Zoo, became well known for its deceptive habit of escaping his enclosure many times and acting innocent when under surveillance.
He just keeps
escaping. Once the zookeepers
escaping?
would go away, Ken would get right back at trying to escape. This guy went ahead and would teach other orangutans how to get out.
What a savage. It's some guy in a suit. Some guy in an orangutan
Allen
suit.
himself hasn't escaped from this exhibit for almost a year now. That doesn't mean he's lost interest. Most people here think he's the
1988.
mastermind behind these other successful attempts.
Why'd they do it like that?
Apart from being deceptive, this species can actually teach others how to do the same as well. Another fella known as Fu Manchu would fashion a lockpick from a wire.
That just
to
looks
let
like a
himself
person,
out,
like a hairy
hiding this
person.
tool inside his mouth, understanding that this little device is important for escape. Just like Ken, this orangutan escaped many times.
That's scary, bro.
Because this species is basically a master of deception, we can assume that Scar King will probably have these same attributes. Being
So he's going to be smart. I mean, we kind of knew that.
It would be able to do things Kong can't. Now, admittedly, Kong was a pretty deceptive creature himself as well, as seen in the Battle of Hong Kong, where he successfully lured Godzilla to face away from him.
True.
This deceptive nature in Kong is one of the few attributes that he highly outperforms gorillas in. One could say
he's
Kong
no normal
outperforms
gorilla.
orangutans in deception as well, but will he be better at this than Scar King?
It depends on if
we
Scar
think
King
about
has like
this for a
powers. You know what I'm saying?
Deceit will
If
be
he
one
does,
of the many attributes that Scar King will have to be better at.
it's going to be difficult.
Since he already lacks a robust build. Meaning that rather than focusing on strength, this guy would be highly dependent on his wits.
True.
The
'Cause if Kong
superiority
gets
of
him,
orangutan intelligence
it's
does
over.
not end in deceit.
He's gonna snap that man
Coming
in
up,
half.
Can these animals give us clues about any potential weaponry? Number 3, tool
Some
use.
tool use, okay.
Scar King's
And
use
that's
of
gonna be
tools
Godzilla,
can
bro.
maybe be hinted at
That's
by
gonna be
the tool
Godzilla's.
use proficiency found in orangutans. Note that in the real world, orangutans are animals that don't just eat plants and fruits, but also consume meat, such as fish, but it doesn't end there. In fact,
Is
they
that
are
real?
one of the only
Did he
few of the
actually
great
fish
apes
with a
that
fishing
eat
pole?
other apes.
Oh my-
Orangutans are seen fashioning prods to scare catfish out of the water to grab them, altering existing tools to improve them, using deductive reasoning to understand what tools are best
he's
for the
washing his
task at
body.
hand,
I didn't know what
and
that was.
using makeshift whips to scare away or get animals of other species to stay at bay. Scar King would maybe display these traits, but at a more magnified scale. But first,
I don't know,
let's
man.
talk
I feel
about
like
gorillas
Kong just
and
has
the
the
Kong
better
species.
It's because I've seen
This
Kong, you know.
female
We
gorilla
haven't
here
seen Scar
is
King.
seen using a stick to gauge the depth of this small body of water
So
to
I don't
see
know.
if it's
I
safe
don't
to cross. This
We're not
is one
really
of
gonna
the
know till the
few
movie comes out.
examples we have. In comparison to orangutans,
I wanna see the
gorillas
links, bro. I
don't
wanna
really
see.
display vast amounts of tool use in the real world due to the fact that most of the activities that they partake in can be facilitated by their own bodies. No need to use rocks
so
to crack
strong
fruits
too, bro.
open when you boast the 5th most powerful bite in the animal kingdom. And since being extremely strong solves most, if not all, of your problems when it comes to defense and hunting. Except gorillas are strictly vegetarian, so
The
no
chest
need to
beat.
use any tools to capture prey like their Asian counterparts. This
That is
one of the
crazy.
other main differences between Monster vs. Kong and gorillas. Our Kong here feeds on mostly meat and rarely relies on tools to hunt and dispatch them, but its species can meticulously craft weaponry. But will
That
these
was
weapons
nasty.
be better
I've
than
seen that so
Scar
many times,
King's? If we use gorillas and orangutans as base reference, it's likely that Scar King might have even more intricate tools or have one tool capable of being a multi-use weapon.
That's interesting.
One which could level the playing field against a much
Because
stronger
we haven't seen any
kaiju.
tools from him, obviously.
Number 4,
So maybe it's like behind him.
observation. One thing is
Or he just
learning
has them
from your
hidden.
own kind, but
I don't know.
another is learning from another species. All apes are
What, is he
capable
gonna
of
learn
seeing
from 'em?
and observing a senior
I'm
specimen
confused.
complete a task and learning from them.
Bro.
Orangutans are a bit more interesting. In the
Goodness.
real world, we find that even amongst themselves, orangutans will employ tactics and tool sets that are unique to their regions or territories.
Why is this man so
Several
close to
researchers
the
have used
orangutan?
the word culture
He's
to
tripping.
describe these behaviors. They take this a
Do
step
they not
further
get in
by
the
not
water or
only
something?
learning from their seniors, but also learning from
Maybe
other
that's why.
smaller animals. Orangutans have been observed to study gibbons, observing how they access new food sources, and then copying these methods themselves. But you know what else they watch?
So they can learn.
That's right, orangutans are known to learn things from us.
Stop it.
Such as the catfish retrieval
That's
method
hilarious.
mentioned earlier, which was likely then learned by another orangutan, and so on. What you're looking at now is an orangutan learning how to use a saw, first determining which side was sharp and recalling how this tool is used, and for what. Will Scar King be as observant as real-world orangutans? This is actually very likely the case. It's possible that this guy is older
Is that kind
than
of the
Kong,
leak right
so
here?
he already has experience and knowledge attained from other members of his kind that are now dead or maybe still alive.
I think that was kind of the
learning skills
I don't know
from
if that was the
human
leak,
Hollow Earth
actually.
civilizations as well. We
It looked
must
like a good
also
version
mention
of
that
him.
the Kong species isn't so far behind on this as well. After all, the novelization of Godzilla vs. Kong does state that the Iwi and Kongs did once live together, implying that Kongs also learned a few things from humans.
Hey, from the very first King Kong, they were kind of living together,
maybe
somewhat.
do the same, but better.
I don't know if y'all seen the very
This kaiju is
first
some sort
one.
of titan used to spearhead a coalition of red apes, it is perhaps possible that his knowledge is passed down to other members
He
of
could
his
have a
kind
crew,
as well.
bro.
Now,
But if
let's
it's
get into the
Godzilla
last
and Kong,
most trippy segment
I'm taking
of
my
this
boys.
episode.
All day.
Number 5,
Communication.
How well could Scar King communicate?
Huh.
In GvK, we witnessed Kong communicate via ASL, American Sign Language.
Yep, he can sign.
Kong was obviously taught this method of communication, similar to how modern-day apes are taught sign language. In this case, both gorillas and orangutans are capable of
That's crazy,
communicating
bro.
in this
That's so
fashion,
crazy.
capable of making themselves understood and exchanging
I still
in
haven't seen the
complex
leak that he's talking about.
conversations.
I want to
But
see
what
that.
advantages do orangutans have
Maybe we've
over
already seen
gorillas,
it and I just don't even know.
What could Scar King's advantage be over Kong? Orangutans are some of the most outwardly cognizant animals, going as far as understanding concepts of exchange and using certain objects as currency to get things in return. Even if an orangutan is not taught sign language, they are capable of pantomiming, using their hands to point at objects in an attempt to get a message across.
He said, "Let me see that, baby."
And they do this quite effectively. Like this fella who was able to get these humans to dig inside this purse to see what was inside. Scar King will likely not be able to talk to humans from the get-go because there's nobody down here teaching this dude sign language that we
That's
know
true.
of.
That we
Despite
know of.
this, perhaps Scar King would be able to communicate with humans and Kong with other methods, pantomiming like his apparent real-world counterparts, or skipping humanity altogether and talking to Kong. This exchange and dialogue is a lot more likely to happen in this film. It would be
I'm
really
so
cool
excited
to
for
witness
that
a
movie,
scene
bro.
where Kong and
It's so
Scar
far
King
away,
share
but
some
still.
sort of dialogue either through vocalizations or signaling, and take many forms such as questions,
Oh,
insults,
that's gonna be
or
so
even
sick,
bullying.
man. I cannot
this
wait.
This is where a much more witty and manipulative kaiju
Who
would
do you
have
guys
an
got,
edge,
Scar
getting
King?
inside
Or
Kong's
the
head
squad?
and making him act
Godzilla
more
and Kong.
erratic. Today, we learned that orangutan intelligence is a bit different than that of gorillas, probably suggesting that Scar King's
It's a whole
character
different
and
species.
abilities may give him an edge against Kong. But will this be enough to face both Kong and Godzilla?
Yeah, guys, me personally, I don't think so. I'm going with Godzilla and Kong in the actual movie. Let me know who you guys are gonna have, and I will see you tomorrow. I love ya. Goodbye.